And on BBC Radio 4, the actress Samantha Bond, who's been known to do some secretarial tempting for James Bond, or even temping, goes in search of her real passion, perfecting the performance of Shakespeare's dramatic verse, or, for our purpose, gentles all, Miss Moneypenny's metre.
Speak the speech, I pray you, as I pronounced it to you, trippingly on the tongue.
This story shall the good man teach his son, and Crispian shall ne'er go by, from this day to the ending of the world. But we in it shall be remembered.
Use all gently, for in the very torrent tempest, and as I may say whirlwind of your passion, you must acquire and beget a temperance that may give it smoothness.
I have a faint, cold fear thrills through my veins. It almost freezes up the heat of life.
Be not too tame neither, but let your own discretion be your tutor.
Now is the winter of our discontent made glorious summer by this son of York.
Go. Make you ready.
You always were a cunning linguist, James. Well, it was fun to do. But you know, I've never had anyone come up to me and comment on my delivery of a James Bond script. And there aren't many notes in the text either. Learn it, do it, give 007 a snog, and away we go. This, on the other hand, is my copy of Romeo and Juliet. It's a battered, gnarled copy with particular page 115 that falls out. It's got markings for stress. It says things like, dreamy, not sad. He's not here, horny. Gallop apace, you fiery-footed steeds.
Fiery-footed steeds. Towards Phoebus' lodging. Such a wagoner as Phaeton would whip you to the west and bring in cloudy night immediately.
And that's what this programme's all about. The performing of Shakespeare's dramatic verse. That it's some of the finest writing in English, that it developed from the early history plays through the great tragedies all the way to The Tempest, that he still manages, to create a sense of thought becoming word and word action. We'll take all that as read. No, what I want to explore is the idea that there's a particular method of performing it that makes all those things ring true. And if there is, should it, or rather, can it, be taught?
Yes, of course actors can learn the speaking. I think it requires a certain innate talent, but my God, that talent can be burnished and helped by tuition.
I think it's really just giving people an opportunity to speak Shakespeare for themselves and to hear what it does when you speak it.
And once you've learnt it, it's a kind of thing like the alphabet or riding a bike. Once you've learnt it, it's always there. And it never, never, never fails you.
An actor, a voice coach, and a critic. And we'll hear more from all of them. But we better start with the actor. She is, after all, my James Bond boss, M. And seated with her backstage at the Haymarket Theatre in central London, I wondered where and when Dame Judi Dench learned the technique which has never failed her.
I remember in school we had to read As You Like It. We had to read 10 lines each, regardless of who was speaking. Just 10 lines, just 10 lines. So it made complete nonsense to me. Absolutely. And I loathed the play.
But when you were doing your 10 lines, were you being taught about verse endings, or was it just trying to make the sense of it?
Not even trying to make the sense of it, just the 10 lines, just read the 10 lines. No sense, no line endings, no nothing. And then, of course, I came to work with Zeffirelli and played Juliet for him, the Vic, in his first Shakespeare production. And he said, oh, no, the verse doesn't matter at all. Well, of course, we got clobbered for it, absolutely clobbered, and rightly so. Because unless you obey the verse, you fail to get the sense of it.
So who were the people who, I suppose, taught the verse to you, taught you that that was an important aspect of the text?
Peter Hall, Trevor Nunn, John Barton. If you have the schooling with those three, you never forget it. There are some very simple kind of rules to learn.
Didst thou but know the inly touch of love, thou wouldst as soon go kindle fire with snow, as seek to quench the fire of love with words.
No, I do not seek to quench your love's hot fire, but qualify the fire's extreme rage, lest it should burn above the bounds of reason.
The more thou damn'st it up, the more it burns.
Dame Judi as Julia, and Gudrun Ure as Lucetta, in The Two Gentlemen of Verona. Working on the ancient mariner principle of interviewing one of any three names suggested, I booked a session with Sir Peter Hall. It's no exaggeration to say that on this subject his status is legendary. In at the founding of the Royal Shakespeare Company, I hope he won't mind me saying that his reputation is also that of a bit of a disciplinarian when it comes to the way verse works. Now, unlike Dame Judi, I've never actually worked with him, so, bloody bold and resolute, I asked him if there were rules that could be learnt.
No. No. There are indications. There are clues. More trouble is done by people thinking there is a way of speaking verse, which you must do. You know, it paralyzes actors, bores audiences. That's not really what we're talking about. The real issue, I think, for a start, is why is it written in verse anyway? Verse, remember, is not poetry, and poetry is not necessarily in verse. Shakespeare's verse is a simulation of ordinary speech, like I'm talking to you now. It's not poetic at all. And the interesting thing about it is, you say, well, then why does he bother to do it in 5-beat lines? Because there are 5 beats in each line. If music be the food of love, play on. And then if you listen to English being spoken, even now, roughly speaking, each element of phrase that we speak in ordinary life has about 5 beats in it.
Goodness.
Whereas the French have 6, and their classical line is the Alexandrine with 6 beats, and ours is the iambic line with 5 beats.
An easy thing to say, but is he right?
5 beats.
Well, yes, as it turns out, I think he is.
5 beats.
OK, not all the time, but it's certainly not odd to say, I think I'm going to have a cup of tea. The perfect iambic pentameter line, 5 beats. De-dum, 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 de-dum. But why does it matter?
It's a device of communication. People who rush Shakespeare's verse and run from one bit to the next don't actually help the audience to understand. The 5-beat phrase is about what you can take in.
God save the king. Will no man say amen? Am I but priest and clerk? Well then, amen. God save the king, although I be not he, and yet amen if heaven do think him me.
Gielgud observed it by braying slightly at the end of each line. Peggy Ashcroft, who I worked with innumerable times, marked the end of the line by boom, like a bell.
When you durst do it, then you were a man. And to be more than what you were, you would be so much more the man.
But you always knew where the end of the line was.
Yeah.
It didn't stop. It was like a jumping-off pad to the next bit of energy.
Gallop apace, you fiery-footed steeds, towards Phoebus. You know, you don't do it like that, but you find a way yourself of punctuating the end, so that the end of the line is observed and adhered to, but it isn't intrusive. Gallop apace, you fiery-footed steeds, towards Phoebus' lodging.
Now people say, if music be the food of love, play on, give me excess of it, that surfeiting the appetite may sicken and so die. That strain again. You say, wait a minute. Now, if music be the food of love, play on, give me excess of it, that surfeiting the appetite may sicken and so die. That strain again. It had a dying fall. Oh, it came o'er my ear, like the sweet sound that breathes upon a bank of violets, stealing and giving odour.
So lines heavy with meaning need spaces, ensuring the listener is never left behind. Mind you, all this advice about 5 stresses per line and clear line endings is easy enough to follow in a nice, neat, modern edition of a Shakespeare play. How clear was it for the original actors?